Imagine an island that used to be a lush paradise covered in thick forests and teeming with wildlife. That's what Sulawesi in Indonesia was like not too long ago. But now, it's a different story. This place is turning into a major global hub for nickel, a metal that's super important for making electric vehicle EV batteries. You know those batteries that let electric cars go really far on a single charge? Yeah, they need a lot of nickel, and Sulawesi has tons of it. Now, you might think this sounds great. More electric cars mean less pollution, right? Well, it's not that simple. The way they're getting this nickel is causing some serious problems. The island's transformation is coming at a huge cost. Think dust, smoke, mud, and a lot of unhappy locals. People there can't really complain. They just have to put up with it. Sulawesi's nickel industry is booming with no signs of slowing down. Workers from all over Indonesia are flocking to the island even though the jobs can be deadly. Just recently, 13 people died, and many more were injured after an explosion at a nickel plant. The Ministry of Manpower sent a special team to investigate. But for the people living there, risking their lives and health to make a living is just part of the deal. Why all this fuss about nickel, you ask? Well, if you want electric cars that can travel long distances, you need batteries with a lot of nickel. Adding nickel to the battery cells makes them hold more energy. Indonesia has these massive nickel reserves, which isn't news. What's changed in the last decade or so is the technology for processing nickel. This has sparked a kind of gold rush, with Chinese companies seeing a big opportunity. They started building nickel facilities all over Indonesia, attracted by the cheap labor and energy. The biggest player in the game is Tsingshan, a top nickel seller. They control a huge facility called IMIP, which sprawls across the seaside in Morowali. To give you an idea, this place is about 10 times the size of Central Park in New York. It's like a massive industrial complex just landed in the middle of what used to be jungle and rice paddies. Because of this, Morowali's economy has exploded, growing nearly 600% between 2015 and 2022. It's great for job opportunities, especially for the youth. But there's a dark side. The air pollution is terrible. Indonesia's cheap power comes from coal, which means these facilities are really dirty. In the last 5 years, there's been a rise in diseases caused by pollution. Kids are getting sick more often, with respiratory infections and even tuberculosis becoming common. The classrooms are so dusty that teachers have to clean the desks every morning. It's ironic, isn't it? We think of electric cars as a solution to climate change, making transportation greener. But producing the nickel for these cars using coal is creating another set of problems. Around the island, trash piles up, and pollution is everywhere. And it's not just the environment that's suffering. The working conditions are downright dangerous. On Christmas Eve 2023, a fire broke out at a stainless steel smelter in IMIP, killing 21 men and injuring many more. Workers told us that injuries are common because there's not enough safety gear. They asked to remain anonymous because they're scared of losing their jobs. They mentioned horrific accidents like people getting caught in heavy machinery, falling from heights, and even losing limbs. These incidents happen almost daily. Just up the coast from IMIP, there's another facility called Gunbuster Nickel Industry, run by Jiangsu Delong, a Chinese metals company. In December 2022, 2 workers were trapped in a crane cab when coal dust caught fire beneath them. They burned to death. One of them was a 20-year-old named Imade Difri Hari Jonathan. His family was devastated. Dafri had hoped to support his parents and build them a house. The company paid for the hospital costs, the autopsy, and repatriated his body, giving the family about $824. Dafri's father couldn't bring himself to spend the money, saying it felt like spending Jonathan's body. After Jonathan's death, workers at Gunbuster protested, and the protests turned violent, leading to more deaths. Indonesia's human rights regulator launched an investigation and found serious issues like unsafe working conditions and lack of worker protection. One worker shared his fears about accidents, mentioning a friend who became permanently disabled after a piece of metal hit his eye. Despite being disabled, he still works there because he has no other options to provide for his family. The local community feels trapped. Jobs are scarce in rural Sulawesi, so working in these nickel facilities is often the only choice. People complain that the government doesn't care about them. They feel abandoned with false promises from politicians who never deliver. The Indonesian government under President Jokowi has been pushing for downstreaming, which means processing nickel locally to add more value. This policy has continued under the incoming President Prabowo Subianto. They've been very enthusiastic about this despite acknowledging some of the criticisms. This strategy has made Indonesia a dominant player in the global nickel market, crashing prices and causing problems for other nickel-producing countries. Indonesia is set to supply 2/3 of the world's nickel by the end of this decade. So, next time you see an electric car, think about the real cost. The batteries might be green, but the nickel inside them comes from places like Sulawesi, where people are paying a heavy price. They're risking their health and lives in dangerous conditions, dealing with pollution and watching their once beautiful island turn into an industrial wasteland. It's a stark reminder that our everyday choices, like buying a car, have far-reaching consequences. The push for green technology is essential, but we need to be mindful of how we get there. The story of Sulawesi's nickel industry shows that while we're trying to solve one problem, we might be creating another. And the people on the front lines of this industry, those workers and their families, are the ones bearing the brunt of it.